We're going to talk about how to have a civic conversation. This is one of the programs we offer to schools. We've done many of these with speeches about the Constitution, which I've given over 600 or so. We've done thousands through the foundation. Or we can talk about how to have a civic conversation. So we have many wonderful guests. Let me introduce them. Tova Kaplan. If you heard the Constitution being read earlier, you saw the fabulous Tova Love Kaplan. She's from Illinois. She's a National Youth Director for Constituting America and a Constitutional Chats co-host. She and Dakari helped us read, as you know, the Constitution earlier today. Say hi, wave hi.
Thanks for having me, and so glad to see so many people on here.
We're thrilled to see you, and I just to make sure we get this all done in 21 minutes. Okay, Dakari Chapman is a previous Best High School Short Film winner, as well as PSA, many fabulous things. He serves as the National Student Ambassador for Constituting America's National Youth Board. He is passionate about public speaking, singing, and acting since the age of 5. He's a Lion King, and he hopes to one day be a politician. But Dakari is already a world famous actor. Just wave hi. I don't have time to say hi right now. Just
hi,
wave.
everyone.
Okay. Isabel Cruz is a 2020 middle school winner for Best PSA. We met Isabel earlier, and she won last year for Best Essay. She's 14 years old and hails from Missouri. Isabel's passionate about acting, singing, reading, writing, running, and swimming. I think I saw her swimming the other day. And she did a terrific job of reciting the Pledge of Allegiance for us earlier today. Wave hi. We're going to talk to you in a second. There we go. David Edelman won for the Best Teacher Lesson Plan. There's David. I'm so excited to see you, David. Woohoo! He's done his Constitution. David, I'm in New York. I'm probably looking in your direction.
40 Irving Place. Come by, Janine.
I will. We have to get together for sure. David Edelman won the Best Teacher Lesson Plan. He's just fabulous. He teaches 11th and 12th graders in the New York City public school system, and he is also a peer instructional coach, and he's testified before Congress. So we'll be right back to talk to you. We're so thrilled you're here. Joanne Villard, this is your side, Joanne. This is your second introduction today. Is this year's winner of Best High School PSA, which, by the way, has already aired in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the country because we hired a company, because we're so proud of her, and we hired a company to promote her PSAs. She's a high school senior from Maryland. Her love of film editing started when she was in 4th grade. She's won multiple film festivals and also enjoys debating and speeches. Wave hi. We'll come back to you in a second. There she is again. Her PSA is fabulous. Aubrey Jackman from Utah. There's Aubrey. Yay. She is our winner for Best College STEM. Aubrey is a senior at Brigham Young University this year, majoring in family studies. She loves to play sports, including basketball and tennis, and she works with us on Constitutional Chats every Tuesday. So hi, Aubrey. We're thrilled you're here. Okay, we're going to come back and chat with everybody in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about civic conversation, our program in the classrooms. We start by having the students break into 2 groups on different sides of a controversial issue. Most recently, it's been climate change. It can be the border wall. It can be whatever. Students split into 2 sides of the issue and begin a debate, just kind of an organic, what they know off the top of their head debate. And sometimes it gets heated. After they've talked about their initial opinions, then we introduce the one you're going to see, Constituting America. We produced this civic conversation video, which we're going to watch in just a minute. Then each group, guess what they do? They read an article about the opposing point of view. They actually read a newspaper article with some of the other side's evidence. And we say, you know what, when you read that article about the opposite point of view, highlight 3 things that you agree with and that you didn't know before. And then afterwards, the 2 sides come together and say, well, I didn't know about that. And the other side says, well, you know, I really didn't know about that. And they learn to have a civil, which means nice, civic conversation. And then they create a piece of mock legislation to create a bill where both sides come together to get what they want. Imagine that. All right, so today we're going to watch this video. It's 5 minutes. We filmed it in 2018 on a professional soundstage in Austin, Texas, and it's 5 of our fabulous, wonderful winners. So watch this amazing video. And I just asked them, hey, talk to me about having a civic conversation. You're not going to believe their wisdom.
I do have a friend that we never agree to anything, but we're still friends. But we usually talk it out, and we apply reasoning and reasons why we think that way. So I will hear her out, and then I would add on to like what she thought and how I agreed with her, and then she would do the same with me, and then we would also talk about our disagreements, and we would just kind of work it out in the end and just be like, okay, yes, I understand that you feel that way, and we just understand each other in the end.
One thing that's important to understand too is that no one knows everything. And every time you talk to someone, you might learn something new. So it's always worth starting that conversation. And even though you might feel like you're so steadfast in that issue, that person might bring up a topic that you never really thought about it from that angle before. And it's always interesting to think about it like that.
Yeah, going along with what you're saying, I found like you really have to look for your common ground, and you can really learn new things. What I've learned through having a lot of these conversations with my friends and people who disagree with me is just because you think you're 100% right doesn't mean the other person is necessarily 100% wrong. There are gray areas in politics and in government, and just because you're right doesn't mean someone's wrong, and vice versa. There's so many different interpretations, and none is 100% right and perfect, and none are 100% terrible and evil. So when you're having these conversations or arguments, whatever you want to call it, you have to try and find your common ground. What else? You have to go into the conversations with an open mind. You can't have the mindset of, I am right, they are wrong, that's all that's gonna happen, because then nobody's gonna change their opinion, and your conversation will just be a waste of time. What you can do is go into the conversation thinking, well, I'm pretty sure I'm right, I'm pretty sure they're wrong, but let me see where this conversation takes us, and maybe your opinion will even be changed.
You don't even have to always find common ground when you don't, like when you're having two opposing opinions, because at the end of the day, it's like everyone has their own perspective. Like I cannot walk through life the same way as someone else. So when I go into like debates or like I don't really agree with the person says, I used to have a bad habit of I listened to respond and I didn't listen to understand. So now I try to like step outside of myself and like listen, and of course I go into like the over analyzing, like, well, what's their background, like what they do, like I kind of think like, let me try to piece together why they think the way they think, because for something that's like logical thinking for me, being from Chicago, on the south side, may not be the same logical way of thinking for someone who grew up on a farm. Like we just aren't gonna think the same. We aren't gonna think like certain policies matter over the other. So it's just like you have to not be so selfish with your thoughts, and just like really open up and be willing to take in what someone has to say, whether you agree with it or not, because ultimately it's going to help shape the way you think overall.
One of the main causes of having like a fight or an argument is a misunderstanding. So it really helps me to listen out the other person's argument and repeat it back to them and be like, okay, so you think this, and you repeat back their argument and say, am I understanding you correctly? Like, did I get everything? And then they say, yes. And then you say, all right, so here's what I think. And then you're able to make sure that you understand each other and you didn't miss anything in their argument, and that you're able to walk away with understanding instead of anger.
A lot of people go into the conversation with the one intention of like trying to convince the other person and make them know that they're wrong. But when you go into these conversations, there's a very little chance that anyone's going to change their mind. So what I like to do is just like try and plant a seed, of maybe your opinion, and right away they might not relent and change their opinion, but it just might be a thought or a seed, and maybe it'll grow into another opinion or another way of thinking about the issue.
All right, so now here's our challenge. We have 6 people in this segment and we have 13 minutes. So if we do the math, everyone gets about a minute and a half, and then we're gonna do a lightning round after that. So it's not very long, but you can say a lot in a minute and a half. Mr. Edelman, you rock and roll. So thrilled you're here. You actually incorporated civil civic conversation into your winning lesson plan. Why do you think it's important to teach students how to have a civil civic conversation, Mr. Edelman, there with your Constitution?
That video was amazing. I think said it all. I'm totally going to show that to my students before we have our first classroom caucus in about a week. If I can add a little bit, Civil civic conversations breathe life into the Constitution's First Amendment protection of freedom of speech, right? As Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said, he put it best, schools should be marketplaces of ideas. And the way to help achieve that is through civil civic conversation. And as a classroom teacher, it's by ensuring that we have a discussion of multiple perspectives. And often that's through student-led discourse and dialogue. So civil discourse requires active listening for understanding, not merely the desire to invalidate or refute somebody's opposing ideas. That was something that was shared with in the video as well. And also individual self-reflection, the opportunity to change your mind and encourage students to think in a way where change is okay. You don't need to be steadfast in your beliefs. I love teaching because I feel supported in discussing controversial topics with my students. If something's controversial, by definition, there's strong arguments to be made on both sides, right? And so controversial topics are often the most meaningful, relevant, engaging topics for students to discuss and analyze together.
Terrific. I just think you're terrific. All right, Dakari, what do you think is the hardest part about having a civil civic conversation? Give it to me in about 60 seconds.
I think what the hardest thing is, and it's not just because we want this to happen, but because we're human. I think the hardest thing is finding that 5%, finding what we together agree on, because everyone comes into something and they have their disagreement and they know, but they don't know the other point of view. And so they're trying to constantly stress their point of view. And I feel like just finding that common ground is the hardest part, because like I said, we're human. That's what we're going to do. We're going to disagree and it's going to happen, but we have to make sure that even through our disagreement, we bring in the things that we do agree on, which are hard to find. 5%, it sounds like a little bit, but it is a lot, but it's hard to find. So I feel like that's the hardest part. If I could connect it to acting, it'd be like if I go onto a set and I'm the actor and I'm doing the scene perfect. But the director's job is to direct me to try different things. So what are they going to do? They're going to ask me to try different things, even if I'm doing it perfectly. So I think that's just the amazing thing.
Yeah. Take 1, take 2, take 3, right?
Yep.
That's take 4, take 5, take 6, take 7. All right, Dakari, brilliant as always. Tova, do you have any examples of a time after you participated in a civil civic conversation where it helped you diffuse a situation later? Also, I'd like to know where you get your news in about 60 seconds.
Sure. Well, first of all, where I get my news, I try to get it from a wide variety of sources. And I think that's something that people don't really realize how important it is to hear different sources where you're getting your news from, right? Because something that's so important in debates is facts. And if everybody is reading different news that's catered to their opinion, then we're not even starting off with the same facts. So how are we supposed to have a debate? And so people don't realize when they're scrolling through social media, those algorithms are designed to only give you news that confirms what you think. So you're not going to get a variety of news just scrolling. So you have to seek that out. So, I try to read like all sources like New York Times, Fox News, Atlantic, like just different sources that don't just confirm what I believe already. And so, yeah, and I encourage other people to do so as well.
All right, Tova, you rock. I'll maybe back if I have enough time. Thank goodness. You're a great example. All right, Aubrey, how do you go about making sure you find and use balanced information when you're researching for school or personal use in a minute?
So something that I actually learned from Constituting America is there is an amazing website called procon.org, and it actually provides both sides of different arguments that you can just search whatever you want, because just like Tova was saying, it's a lot easier to find what your side of the argument is or whatever information you're looking for, but this provides both sides so you have more of a balanced view.
That is really good, pro and con. I like pro and con a lot. How good? So do you have any, in 30 seconds, do you have a particular challenge when you're up against someone who's not wanting to hear your point of view? What do? Do you take a deep breath? Thomas Jefferson said he counted to 10.
Just try to think that, just like Dakari was saying, like try to think, well, maybe they're right in part of it, and then kind of balances it out for me.
Yeah. Being open-minded. Like, And that's what reason's all about. Reason is hearing two points of view and being able to put it all together. Collaboration, that's my new word. Collaboration, though we're all not perfect at it. I try, I slip sometimes. All right, thank you, Aubrey. Well, I'm gonna be back for a lightning round. Isabel, why do you think it's important for students to learn about having a civic conversation? And you have about 1 minute.
Okay, it's important for students to learn about how to have a civic conversation so they know how to discuss their opinions in a positive way that prevents arguing and frustration, because this can help us to better understand each other and form our own educated opinions based on what they said and based on what we already believed. And it's really important not to be, so you can have your opinion ahead of time, but it's really important to not to be biased against what they're having to say. So like Tova said in the video, not going in thinking they're 100% wrong, because then you can learn from them.
True. And it's hard sometimes when you're dealing with someone and they think they're 100% right. All right, Joanne, your winning PSA talks about the importance of having challenging conversations with people with whom you disagree, right up the alley of what we're trying to teach. And you did it so beautifully with your imagery. I just can't get over the matching of your imagery with your words. Talk to us about the inspiration message in your PSA.
Okay, well, growing up, society has taught us about all these subjects that we can and then we can't talk about because they're too sensitive. But sometimes people have to talk about these sensitive topics in order to develop and for us to grow as a country. The inspiration behind my PSA touches on how many people have to watch what they say. And I wanted to talk about how having these challenging conversations, especially since I grew up in such a way where many topics were censored, and not, well, only because of like my skin, but because of how American conversations are structured as it is today.
So how did you learn to have a conversation where you felt you could be heard but not offend the other person?
It's really just trial and error, seeing how much people are able to actually take. And when you talk to enough people, you're able to realize that a lot of people do want to talk about these conversations. They're just too afraid to talk about it.
You can see Joanne's winning work, all of his winning works at constitutingamerica.org. David Elliman, give me a lightning round, few words. If you had to sum up why a civic conversation is the bedrock to keeping liberty, give me a few words.
I mean, for keeping liberty, it's the First Amendment, right? Freedom of speech. And again, if you want schools to be ideal places where you want students to learn, you have to work towards fostering multiple perspectives and making sure that schools are places where people could speak their minds and learn from one another.
I mean, I know a lot of teachers feel that's hard to do these days.
Anything that's this important is often hard to do. And I think the way that should be fostered is by elevating educators to work towards this goal, which is to foster civic discourse with our students. I mean, I think there's lots of strategies, just like that was talked about in the video, that students can do to do that. I think the hardest thing is listening for understanding as opposed to merely for refuting. And you can give students sentence starters where it says, students before they say anything else have to say, I heard you say ... And I agree with this because, and then I disagree with this because, and a question that I have for you to learn more is, I think those are really, really important. And also to ground differences in values. It's like, I value this over this, and I see that you value this over this. So there's some common ground, but people learn more about each other as well.
I like that. I like those phrases. We need to talk again, write those down. I need to come see your class because those phrases are really, really good. We need to teach kids those phrases. Okay, David Elliman, you rock. I'm just so excited to see you today. I'm going to go to everybody very quickly, and you give me one word about how to keep your cool in what you need to think in a civic conversation when someone's giving you a difficult time. Dakari, go. One word. What do you need to do? You need to
think.
Very good. Tova, give me one word you need to do during a difficult civic conversation.
Listen.
This is fun. Okay, Aubrey, give me one word if you're in a difficult situation, what you need to do.
Pause.
Pause. Very good. Jawadin, give me one word.
I have 3 words. Stay on topic.
Stay on topic. That's really good. Isabel, do you have one word of what you do?
Breathe.
Ah, that was what I was thinking. I was thinking breathe. Oh my gosh, I think we did it. We got to go. We're into our commercial break. Everybody's fabulous. Stay tuned after our 5-minute break. We have another great show.